vehicle, proudly made in America.
As we move closer to an historic 2016 election day, both candidates continue their outreach to sway voters in battleground states, especially women. In a poll conducted prior to the last debate, Clinton showed an uptick in female support, leading Trump 51 to 39 percentage points in battleground Ohio. NBC's Nicole Wallace traveled to that state to hear directly from millennial mothers about their take on this year's presidential options.
Who's definitely voting on Election Day?
I live in Ohio. Like, my vote in Ohio means something.
On the southern shore of Lake Erie sits Lake County, just outside of Cleveland, where this group of millennial moms are still struggling with this election.
This whole election has morphed into an alternate universe almost, where facts don't matter.
In 2008, Barack Obama won here. In 2012, Mitt Romney won this county. The margin of victory both times, less than 1%.
I don't expect perfection, but I do expect integrity, and I don't see that at all with either candidate.
So as Ohio becomes a must-win state, one thing is clear. When it comes to winning over moms, both candidates have work to do.
They need to win your votes. And if they sat here and said, what would it take? What would it take to lock you up as a voter? What would you want to hear?
Neither one of these candidates seem to be above bashing the other, and that really bothers me. I watched maybe 10 minutes of the first debate, and I felt like I was back in a middle school cafeteria.
So are you throwing your hands in the air?
It is definitely a lesser of two evils choice, and it would have to come down to a game day decision.
You know, trying to get you to hate somebody as opposed to trying to get you to like somebody. And I have a daughter, she's 8 months old. I look at her, and it's not just the next 4 years, it's the next 20 years. It's whatever foundation is laid with this election, she has to grow up in.
I know that Hillary has flaws.
What could she do better to help herself in Ohio?
She probably needs to be more transparent, show like a warmer side, and just try to connect with people a little bit more.
I think when you compare to other candidates, I think you just don't get a great feel for who she is.
Her credibility is a zero. You have Benghazi, you have the emails in the server, even pneumonia. I mean, everything that comes out of her mouth, it's like she can't tell the truth.
Where does that leave you?
That leaves me erring on the side of Trump.
But when it comes to women, the latest NBC News Survey Monkey poll shows that Hillary Clinton leads Donald Trump in every age group.
Tell me how you get over the character concerns with Trump.
I don't think you get over it. I have to trust that he's going to put good people around him that will help guide him in making good, sound decisions, and pray that he can hold it together for 4 years.
I have a hard time with Donald Trump because a lot of what he says goes back and forth so much you can actually watch him contradict himself.
What advice would you give Mr. Trump if he sat here?
I would tell him he needs to be humble. He needs to admit that he's done some pretty awful things, and he needs to turn it around and start being the Trump that the Republicans nominated.
Any leader that admits to treating women in a certain way, it's hard to say that they are a good choice to be the leader of the free world.
Historically, women vote in higher numbers than men. In 2012, 53% of voters were women, so getting out the vote is crucial.
Who's definitely voting for Hillary Clinton or wants to say so today? Who's definitely voting for Donald Trump or wants to say so today? Who remains undecided? There you go, the state of Ohio, the great state of Ohio.
All right, Nicole Wallace with that great conversation, a sit down with millennial moms and how they will vote in Ohio. I want to bring back our panel to Jason Johnson, Noel, Nick Poore, Mike Murray. Noel, it's really interesting to listen to them, you know, those who are Republican and they're millennial moms. And we just see all of this intersectionality that's being brought out in this election. Yeah. You know, the question of these comments, the accused coming forward saying, you know, Donald Trump, elements of sexual assault here. Yet there's obviously not only the gender issues, there are the ethnic issues, all of that really coming out in that table.
Yeah. Bravo, first of all, to Nicole Wallace for putting this group together, because this is right on. This is authentic. These are women. These are everyday women. You know, they're not in the public eye, and they're telling their real feelings. And this tells me both candidates have work to do. She needs to connect, and he needs to be, you know, he needs to incorporate more humility.
How did you find they were talking about gender?
I thought once again, it puts women in a very strange spot, you know, to try to defend the Republican Party with what he said about women.
Yeah, and Jason, this intersectionality, going back to that word here, as it all comes together, right, on that election day, or if they're early voting, when they do decide who they're going to vote for, it is a tough choice, but they're now being asked to make these tough choices, voters like them in Ohio, where the polls right now are, you know, it's lower than 1 percentage point on average in terms of the difference between the two candidates.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've thought this all along. None of those women sounded undecided to me. You can hear the words that they use. If someone mentions Benghazi as being an important issue, they were already going to vote for Trump. If somebody mentions treatment of women, they probably weren't going to vote for Trump. But what I think is interesting about this was the woman who talked about her 8-month-old daughter. I think back to 2008, a lot of people voted for President Barack Obama because they wanted to say what this says about America. I think there's a lot of women in this country, and men as well, who are voting against Trump because they want to repudiate what he might say about America. And that may be playing a role in how a lot of undecided voters, or claiming undecided voters, are voting.
What it says about America, Mike, that's interesting. And to you on this, what did that conversation say about what America is?
Well, interestingly, it was millennial women, which I think is an important point. Because millennial mothers. And I think that's important because what we heard throughout the primary process on the Democratic side, and then in the beginnings of the general election, was that younger women, millennial women, were having a hard time identifying with the sort of historic nature of Hillary Clinton's presidency. They sort of felt like they've achieved sort of equal playing field at college in particular, maybe not in the workforce, but at college. And what's happened is Donald Trump has actually helped with the millennial problem that Hillary Clinton had, millennial women. And so younger women now are starting to further identify with some sort of more overt feminist credentials with the first female president. I think he's actually done a masterful job of bringing home, Trump has done a masterful job for the Democratic Party and bringing home millennials, particularly millennial women, to the fold.
We have seen a resurgence of the idea of feminism around the world. It certainly is that age today. And here in America, though, there are those who would think, but not here. We've made it past that. And now it has certainly become a big part of the election to date. And we look at Hillary Clinton. She's going to be in Pennsylvania today, Pittsburgh in just a little bit. And we hope to get to her when she does come to the microphones. Then later on, she'll be moving on to Philadelphia. But Noelle, as we look at how she's identifying with this theme right now and how well she's handling it, is it just right?
You know, you have to look at this aspect of it. I think a lot of women, it's time, you know, that we are the most focused voting group because we get out there and we do vote. But the question at hand is, Hillary Clinton is breaking glass ceilings for women, but is she the right woman to represent breaking the glass ceiling for women? You
know, we're also watching this state here, Mike, and Pennsylvania. The numbers we've seen have gone down a little bit in terms of her lead on average. She had an 8 percentage point lead on average. Now it's still about 6. Still a good, comfortable lead, though. But she has this challenge here of keeping what she's winning and then going after places like Arizona, which is now a swing state.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to, well, one, on the polling question, she's far superseding where Barack Obama was at any point in both of his elections at this far out. So she's in a good place. But secondly, what she is doing, her closing game, her sort of last 3-week strategy, she's looking right at the camera to Republicans and to independents, and she's saying, look, I know you have some questions about me. I know there are sometimes you may not totally be on board with me and don't know me. I'm going to answer your questions. She's actually doing what's necessary in the close.
Jason, as she is moving to the close here, she's out on a Saturday, and not often, at least in recent weeks, that she had been doing this. Is she hitting the right pace here in terms of what she needs to get done? Is she shining at the right time?
I think so. And I think, you know, Richard, we saw a little bit of this at the Al Smith dinner on Thursday when Hillary Clinton clipped and she says, you know, reasonable Republican voters, or as I like to call them, Hillary Clinton supporters. That's what she's out there doing right now. She is in states that she knows she's got. She sends Michelle Obama and Bernie Sanders to Arizona. She is expanding the field. And right now she's telling people, look, I already know who I've got. I'm trying to convince you waivers. Come on, let me make this a huge victory instead of a close victory.
Super panel today. Thank you so much, Jason Johnson, Noelle Nickpour, Mike Maury, all three of you for joining us today as we were over this last hour or so. That does it for me this hour. I'm Richard Louie live at MSNBC headquarters here in New York.